All right, guys, welcome back to the Hammer and Chisel Performance Podcast. I'm your host, John Heck. All right, I'm fired up about the guest I have on today. Any of you who, if you're an NFL fan, I'm sure you've been watching this guy on Sundays for years, primarily playing D-line for the Denver Broncos. Even if you're not an NFL fan, you may have seen him on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's gotten into some really interesting, cool ventures post-football. So we're going to have a lot of interesting topics to talk about here. Derek Wolfe, welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, John, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been obviously watching you for years. For those of you who don't know, I played O-line. Derek played D-line, so I'm sure we can get into some O-line, D-line talk here. But how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, doing really well, man. Just kicking ass every day, trying to. It's funny because we were talking before this about training and all this and that, and whenever football's done, we just like your job is to stay in shape as a football.
Yeah.
So your job is to just always be training and always trying to get better at your craft. So when I retired, I was like, well, what do I do now? And I love to train, so I just kept training. And then obviously the bow hunting aspect of life is like giving me like a goal for that. So it's the same concept of like you kind of break your body down in the fall with football. It's the same with hunting. You break your body down with all the hiking and you're not really eating great because you're on the mountain all day, and then you're spending a couple of days out on the mountain, and that just takes the toll on you, and you're putting miles and miles and miles in. So then after the hunting season's over, it's like you have to build all that muscle back. So like I go through this like building phase, and then as the summer gets closer, you get into like the conditioning phase. So it's like it's kind of been a lot of fun, and I'm just kind of moving back into like this. I don't know. I'm doing like bodybuilding workouts now, and I'm loving it. Like it's so much fun. It's totally different, and I don't know. It's something new that I've never done before. So really, that's what I've been doing is just training and being a dad and being
Yeah, for sure.
elk as I possibly can.
Yeah, it's tough for a lot of guys when ball ends. I mean, it's over, and then there's just this massive void, right? And a lot of guys, they never had a plan for post football. They get out of it and they realize like, man, I don't have anything else that I'm passionate about. Like I don't have anything else that challenges me. And then a lot of guys fall into a post career depression, or they go broke. Then you see the guy who goes one of two ways: either they get super fat or they get super skinny. Now I heard you mention this. I was listening to your podcast with Brian Shaw, and this really resonated with me. Was just the need to have a challenge, right? Something that you're pursuing, something that just kind of lights that fire under your ass, because that's what you had in football. And I think when guys don't find that post football, that's when their life goes to shit. But it sounds like you've found that in a number of ways.
Yeah, but it's still a struggle, man, because I still miss that. I'm not competing in anything. Like I'm not really competing. Like I'm not every day. It's funny because that anxiety of like, oh, this guy's trying to take my job.
Yeah.
Right. I used to think, man, I fucking hate feeling like this, but I miss feeling like I miss like waking up every day and thinking I have to fucking win today. Because if I don't win today, somebody else might win today and they're going to try to take my job. And it was like, it just pushed me every day. And, I had great coaches that I got to train with, and I, just getting stronger and, staying strong and staying healthy, and then like learning new pass rush techniques and learning all these different, just doing all this crazy shit all the time. And now it's gone. And, then you go to a game sometimes and you hear the roar of the crowd and you're like,
yeah, man, no doubt. And have you considered competing in anything?
Well, so I was a wrestler, and I trained striking with some of the best striking coaches in the world the whole time I played now. Because I just, like, I'm obsessed with combat sports. Just love it all. And when I was going to do that, I was really, because I was in the gym with Brian, helping him get ready. And I was kind of going through a slump when that happened, and Lauren Landau, somebody that we both know, Lauren calls me, goes, hey, like, I know you're fucking going through it, dude. Like, let's you want to come in here and wrestle with Brian? I said, fuck yeah. So we went to and I got to, and I started grappling with him. And then the coach is really, hey, can you spar with some of our bigger guys? And I'm like, sure. And they saw how good my feet and hands were. And they were like, dude, you should maybe think about fight. And then we started doing like live rounds. And I remember it was a reminder of why I actually had to stop, was because I was getting concussions too easy.
Yeah.
And I got hit in the head. Like I got hit in the head pretty good one day at practice. And I was like, I don't know, it just like kind of rung my bell a little bit. And I was acting weird for like 2 or 3 days. And my wife was like, no, you're done with that shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's scary, especially with, I mean, some of the trauma you've had with your brain just over the course of the NFL career. I'm sure you're at this point just hyper predisposed to, to those concussions and further brain damage. And we'll get into that quite a bit here as we go. But I mean, you mentioned the bodybuilding. Like when I got out of football, like you, I needed something to compete in. So I got into strongman, into powerlifting. I'm going to do a bodybuilding show this year. And with all those sports, I never really went into it with some illusion like, oh, I'm going to be the best in the world, but I wanted to be the best I could. I just wanted to be the biggest, strongest, freakiest version of myself that I could be. And, it kind of lit that competitive fire. And the good news is you're not hand-to-hand fighting with another 300-pound man, so you don't have to worry about the concussions in any of those realms.
Right. Yeah, I mean, dude, Brian is a giant.
Yeah.
Like that man is, if he got angry and decided, I've never been picked up and like held like a child. And I was still like, I'm like 280 right now, but I was like, when I was wrestling with Brian, I was 300 pounds. Like I was every bit of 300 pounds. He picked me up and held me and laid me down real easy. And I like a baby. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, dude, Brian, don't ever lay me down like that again. Like, I was like, you got to land on me, like hammer me into the ground. You know what I mean? Don't lay me down like that. It's just like, and he's like, oh, I don't want to hurt you. And I'm like, you're not, God. I was like, you're hurt, Mike.
We're a little bit emasculating with that one. Yeah, the pro strongman, they're a different breed. So I competed at strongman at a pretty high level. I'm 6'7". I've been as heavy as 365, but I'm 330 right now. I've been doing a lot of the bodybuilding stuff, so physique's a little prettier than it's been in my strongman days. I was at the Arnold a month or so ago, and I'm hanging out with the bodybuilders. They're all looking up at me like, dude, you're huge, biggest human I've ever seen. But then I go backstage with the strongman half Thor and all those guys, and they're giving me shit for being the small guy, telling me I'm undersized at 330, which is true. I mean, every single one of them's 380. Half Thor is 440. It is a different species of human.
Ryan is okay. I met Thor. I went to his gym when I was in Iceland. I've never seen a human that looked like
yeah.
His fucking cat were like
the size of the waist.
They're like a waist. I was like, dude, and he's just like the nicest, coolest dude ever, just super chill. But like to watch him, and then he just picks up 1,000 pounds like it's fucking paper. And it just blows my mind, man, how those guys. I thought I loved The World's Strongest Man when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It was on ESPN all the time. So I just was like constantly watching it and was like, man, that would be so cool to do. And, obviously like playing football, you're always like powerlifting a lot. Yeah. I was always into it, man. It was just so cool to watch. They are a different fucking breed, man.
Yeah, that was always, I like just something about strength. Just it's a simple trait. Who can pick up the heaviest thing, or who can put the heaviest thing overhead? Like that, I gravitated towards that. And I've just always loved that. And, you said like they're the half Thor super chill dude. It seems like that's a common trend with all the really big guys, is they're just like super mellow. It's probably because no one's ever like challenged them in their life, that no one's ever tried them like that, but an advantage a guy like you has in a fighting scenario is you got that psychopath killer mindset that you had to have playing NFL football in the trenches,
Well, I think that was that, it's funny that, that's the mentality. I had that mentality. That mentality was like kind of bred into me as I had a fucked up childhood. So like, it was kind of like, I was bred into me, I would have probably been a Hall of Fame left tackle. I was so good at it, but I fucking hated it because you had to be, you know how it is as an offensive lineman, you have to be more strategic, and like, you can't be such a fucking psychopath like when you're playing offensive line, because you have to like, you got to listen for calls and you got to fucking be on your shit. You got to know every single play. You didn't, especially at left tackle. And I just was like, man, I want to play defensive line. Like, that's what I want to fucking, I'm not playing offensive line. I want to try to rip people's faces off. That's what I want to do. And, you know, I would have probably made a lot more money and probably would have been a Hall of Famer. Like, all, you know, you're thinking all those things, but it's like, would I had fun doing it? Probably not, you know, because to play defensive line, man, you have to be a little bit tough. You just have to be, because it's a lot of times you're getting 350-pound dudes trying to move you out of it. And it takes a different type of mentality to do that every single play. Like, I watch film sometimes, I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? Like,
Yeah.
I was like doing.
I always wished I could have been a defensive end. Like, if there's one position I could have played, it would be a pass rush specialist on the edge. It just seems so fun. Like, I love watching pass rushers, just third down, go get the quarterback, man. And you get to be an actual athlete. You can get on the stat sheet. You can have the sack celly and all that. But unfortunately, I couldn't bend and move like some of you freaks. So right tackle was the position for me. Isn't it funny how there's such like a clear-cut personality distinction, like almost always between O-line and D-line? But like O-line, it's always the big, soft teddy bear dudes, you know, probably on average smarter guys in general. And then on D-line, you know, it's a different type of dude over there, you know.
Well, it was the perfect example. It's like the house. I grew up I lived in a pretty interesting house in college. It was me, Jason Kelsey, Travis Kelsey, and then our quarterback, Zach Calaris, who went up to Canada and played and won a couple Grey Cups and an MVP up there. And then our left tackle lived with us too. And our left tackle was like private school kid, really smart, biology degree, like biology major, like studied really hard, like knew every single play, knew what every defense was going to be doing. And then there's me, like this fucking psycho. That's
a hell of a rollout. That's a hell of was that your freshman year?
No, that was the house I lived in our junior and senior year.
Cincinnati's got to retire that house and make it into a freaking museum over there. I mean, you, both Kelseys, and then I know you said the quarterback went on and had a hell of a career in Canada, correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's still playing.
It's a hell of a roommate situation. When did you retire again? How many years has it been?
I retired in 2022, so this is my third year.
Got it. And, you know, just going back to something you mentioned earlier that resonated with me was talking about kind of missing that pressure of like there's someone coming to take your job, that sort of thing. And, you know, coaching, being a strength coach, you're always dealing with the pressure of if we don't win games, like we're getting fired, right? Yeah. There's something that resonated with me because it sounds bad, like it sounds awful, but that the high stakes and the pressure of being in that life, like there's something addictive about, you know, and it's hard to replicate it on the outside world.
Well, and you know, the other thing that I loved about football was that you could assault people.
Yeah.
Now, that's the one, because we're talking about, sorry, the way my brain works is you said that, I was thinking about other things that you can't just replicate. Like,
yeah.
You know how many, like, yeah, I didn't realize how much aggression I was like really getting out, you know, just being on the field and practice, you know, like that controlled aggression and rage, like day in and day out. And then when it's gone, like, you can only move the weight so many times, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't do the same thing as like manhandling like a grown ass man like that. Being able to assault somebody and then like be friends with them later is, you know what I mean? That's like the ultimate, like, it's like in our DNA code as men. right? As like big, burly ass men. That's what we've been doing. We've wrestled with each other, and like, you're always challenging each other physically, and then your buddies afterwards. Like like how it was with you guys, but at college, like some of my best friends, we almost got fist fights during like just wrestling around.
Yeah.
And then it turned into like the best brotherhood ever.
Yeah. There's something about just being in that lifestyle with your teammates where you're trying to murder each other in practice. You're going through really hard, grueling times together, but it brings you closer. It's just like an accepted part of the culture. And then, like you said, you get out of football and it's like, that's what you're used to. That's been encoded into your brain. And now there's not really an acceptable outlet for it. Have you found that you've had to kind of check yourself or where that monster has almost come out, in the real world?
I mean, yeah, it happens daily.
Yeah.
It happens daily. I mean, so I drive a Cider Beast right now, and that's like my daily driver. So in Denver, all these fucking blue hairs are acting like I'm some kind of Nazi or something because I drive a Tesla. So they'll literally stop in the middle of the road and flip me off.
Really?
And I just like, I want to rip their faces off and wear it every day. Cause I'm like, especially when I have my kid, like my daughter in the car, like I'm dropping my daughter off at school this morning and some retard is coming out of the school and he's flipping me off. I'm like, we're in a school, dude. Like, what is your problem? Like, but if I jumped out of the car, he wouldn't do anything.
Yes.
It's like, we live in a society where people can just get away with shit and say whatever they want, do whatever they want, and there's no consequence. Right? So I don't mean to get like philosophical here, but it's like in the football world, if you fuck around, you're gonna find out. Like,
yeah,
that's just how it was. That's the culture. Like if you are going to be doing dirty shit on the field, something's going to happen. Like, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that, and then there's just like an extreme high level of accountability. It's like, you show up late, like you're getting motherfucked.
Yeah.
You're not doing your job. You're getting your ass ripped or you're getting fucking cut or fired. And then, you get out into the real world, it's just much softer. It's like, no, you got to be respectful of feelings. I actually literally just 30 minutes ago before we got on the podcast, the post truck driver ran a stop sign and almost smoked my wife and 3-month-old baby in the car. And my wife comes in, she's all shaken up and she tells me what happened. And I was like, is he still doing his rounds out there? So I walk out and sure enough, he's at the next house. So I wave him down and go over to him. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You almost hit my wife. And I'm going off on this dude, but I start realizing, like, I see this like fear in his eyes because I'm so much bigger than him. And I'm realizing that I'm kind of stepping over him and closer to him. And it kind of like, I kind of like step back and check myself. I'm like, this response, very acceptable in football, just motherfucking someone, going off on someone. But I'm standing here, just this small average dude looking terrified as I'm ripping him. And all of a sudden, I kind of like, I felt bad for a second, like that, I don't want to be the monster out there, but he ran a fucking stop sign and almost hit my wife. Like,
well, I think that's, the old saying that like, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's that mentality, like it never leaves.
Yeah.
You have to keep it down and have to control it. But yeah, it's every day. I mean, it could be something simple where like, even with like your family, right? Where like, I'm so used to this, everything had to be done the way it was supposed to be done, or somebody's getting their ass ripped. So like you come from, when you're in that every day and then you're at home every day and you realize like that's works. Like that, like people make mistakes and then they don't get their ass ripped for it. It's like, when people screw up in football, like it's on film and you're getting your ass ripped. And offensive line, we get it the worst.
Well, I know. Yeah, that's the thing about O-line is you know, you could play 80 snaps and 79 of them can be great, but then that one play where you gave it back or the TFL, right? That's all that you remember. That's all anyone remembers. And I remember like going into the meeting room on a Sunday, just having that one play I'm just dreading seeing on film. I'm dreading seeing that one play. And sure enough, you get called out in front of your teammates. But it gives you thick skin. And I think that's a missing trait in a lot of people. Like even today, you know, if like my training partners show up late, I want to get the whole fucking gym doing up downs. It's like, what are you doing? We said 9:00. It's 9:07, right? But you know,
if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
Exactly. But you know, you mentioned you had kind of a tough upbringing. Tell me a little bit about that, and did any of your tough childhood kind of mold that aggression, that rage in you that ultimately translated onto the field?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I came from an abusive household. It was very chaotic. You know, I had a stepdad that wasn't great. My mom was a drug addict, an alcoholic. Kind of had her own demons that she was dealing with, and she came from an abusive household as well. So it was kind of like just a lot of chaos, and I had a lot of anger towards that. I was just really mad. I was like just angry at the world for putting me in that situation, you know, because then you see, because when you go, you don't realize it until you go to like your friends' houses and you see how what their household is like, you know, and you're like, this is bullshit what I'm going through. And I was pissed off and angry about it for a long time. And I just used it as fuel, you know, and the flip side to that, it's like, oh, that's great that you had something to fuel you. But the flip side to that is that like negative energy it's like jet fuel. It's like it burns quick, right? So you just are constantly digging up this fucking rage and hate that you have inside you, and you're using it every day and all the time. And then eventually it just wears on you. It starts to eat you alive. And I had to, like, during my career, like, once I got married, I had to really like change the way that I motivated myself. And so I started to use more of like the positivity in my life to bring me more, to give me that fire, you know, and that fuel. And man, it's a lot more sustainable. I'll tell you that. Like, it's just, you don't burn out as quick. Like it keeps you going longer. It's kind of like, you know, if I just dump 200 milligrams of caffeine real quick, I'm going to burn out pretty quick. But, you know, if I take like a good carbohydrate, you know, pre-workout that's not full and it's got more nootropics in it and not so much caffeine, I'm probably going to be able to do a 2.5 hour, 3 hour workout, no problem. But, you know, playing a football game and every quarter just having to drudge up some shit, you know, just to, you know, I would even just make shit up about the other guy. Like, that guard across from me is talking, she thinks he's better than me.
Yeah.
He thinks I'm less than because I don't have this and I don't do that. And like, I just would make this shit up. And then all that stuff coming up in your brain, like it does, man. It creates like it's nasty, not good. And it could put you in a hole. And then the flip side to that though, is that like, once I figured out how to use positive energy, you know, and that came with the microdosing. Like once I started microdosing, I was able to like compartmentalize even more. Like, I could compartmentalize that rage, and because I played way better when I was pissed off, right? I just did. Like, can't be happy-go-lucky out there, but I was so pissed off that like there was a lot of guys, maybe they didn't have a father in their life, but they always had a mom, right? Like, people always had a mom or grandma, like they had somebody, and I just had fucking nothing, nobody, and I just embraced that. It was like, you know what? Fuck out. I'm different from everybody, so fuck them all. And I took that mentality, and taking the mushrooms and then mixing that like into my game plan. It's like, dude, I was able to go into like this crazy berserker mode that like everything was slowed down around. Everything was just slowed down around me, and the rage wasn't like overwhelming. You know, because it can get overwhelming. It would overwhelm me, and I would have to go to like the bathroom and fucking lose my mind in a bathroom by myself and like get the crazy. I was used to calling it, I gotta get crazy sound. And I'd go in there and just fucking scream and yell and cuss at myself and fucking talk down to myself until, and then I would be like, okay, I'm good now. And then I'd go out and I'd be good, you know, but it was like, I had to do that all the time. And that's not healthy.
Sure.
Can't do that all the time, you know? And when I started microdosing, I was able to like really control the rage and use it when I needed it, and like use those little bursts while keeping like that positive energy at the same time and being a good teammate and not flipping the fuck out on my teammates all the time, you know, for making a mistake, and, you know, just being a good leader. And so it just brought the best of me. It brought it out.
That's interesting. Let's talk more about the microdosing, because I'm curious. You know, psychedelic, the therapeutic application of psychedelics has always been really interesting to me and something that I've explored myself. When did you discover microdosing?
2013. So I had bruised my spinal cord and I was paralyzed. And then I played 2 weeks later, and
we can't, well, we will get into that, because we can't just gloss over that for like nothing. We'll talk about that down the road.
A quick synopsis of like what kind of led me into that. And when I was done, when we figured finally I had a seizure, like I was playing, I played for 12 weeks after that happened, and I was actually playing good football, but couldn't keep any weight on. It's like getting skinny. Not when I say skinny, I was just like super lean, and just, I don't know, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I wasn't sleeping good. But I was still playing good football. I was having crazy like nightmares and stuff, and finally I had a seizure. And then it was because I had that bruise on my spinal cord. I wasn't getting fresh blood I wasn't getting the fresh blood I needed to my brain. So like my adrenals were drained, everything was done. I was like completely depleted. When I started having that seizure, my heart rate was 16 beats a minute.
16?
Yeah, 16. So because when I get put under, it's like a rare thing, you know, Cypress can do it. When you get put under stress, when I get put under stress, my heart rate is slow. So it's just like, I don't know if that's from the craziness of my childhood, where like shit would start getting crazy and I had no other option. It's like a fight or flight mode. Like I can either like freeze or I can slow the shit down and navigate it. And
right.
That's kind of how my body reacts. It still does that. Like my heart rate kind of slows, and then I process first. And then that's why like my reaction time is a little bit, my anger reaction comes later sometimes, and it like shocks people. But I'm like, no, you don't realize that like 10 minutes ago, you just fucking stepped on my foot, and that processed it now piff.
Yeah.
And realize, and it's like that game, right? But what happened was there was a disconnect between my brain and my body, right? So now I had to try to figure out, how do I connect my brain and my body back together? And so what I did was I have a body worker that I used to work with, like stretch me and get me ready for games and everything. He made this tincture for me. His name's Adam Stir, but he made this tincture for me, and he was like, try this. And I liked taking mushrooms anyways. I didn't like weed. I'd rather take psychedelics. Not a lot of them. I never liked taking too many. I didn't like that feeling, but you know, just a little bit, it always like chilled me out a little bit. Made the process shit a little bit better. You know, I just love being out in the nature, and I love being in the woods. So I would like go out on hikes and shit like that. And so then he was like, just try this before work. Okay. And dude, I was like, dude, that was the best workout I've ever had in my life. I was like, what is this shit? He's like, that's psilocybin. I was like, what the fuck is psilocybin? He's like, that's what's in mushrooms. I was like, oh, okay. So he came up with this. He was like, now try it for a practice. I tried it for a practice. Well, I was doing like all this training to get back, and it got my body weight went down to like 10 or 50 pounds. And I got back to 305, 310.
Okay.
So I had to put like, 60 pounds of good weight back on.
This is all mid-season?
This is all off season. But this happened, the seizure happened in December.
Got it.
December from December leading into July, I had to get back, right? And because I was going into my third NFL season, I had a really good rookie season. Started off my second season really good, and then that third year, I was like, I gotta fucking get my shit back together. Like, this can't be it.
Right.
And I did, man. I did a lot of yoga, like doing a lot of inversions. Was like doing inversions, like doing handstands, headstands.
Yeah.
That like really helped. I don't know what that did, but it really connect my mind and body back together and get me like feeling like being able to support all your weight on your head, like literally just tricked my brain into thinking you're next good.
Yeah.
So that season came in and I was like, I wasn't taking it for games. I would just do it for training. Right. And then I played that whole season and had a great season. And then in 2015, I was like, I'm going to try this shit for games. Cause I tried it for like some games and it was like it was like weird. I just didn't love it. And he just kind of changed up the formula a little bit. It was like, try this before a game. And I'm like, okay. So I did. And dude, it was like, I mean, everything was slowed down. And it was like playing a video game. Like I knew it was going to happen before it happened. I could see I knew where I could like time up the timing was perfect. So like his hand placement, I would chop his hands and this and be able to move my hips. And like, I could like feel what was behind. It was just crazy how it worked. And I could see where the jersey was a little looser here. So I could grab it there. Like just little things that you don't think about in the moment. But whenever everything slowed down for me, I could see it. And dude, in 2015, I started doing it. And it's fucking LA. It was like a cheat code.
Interesting. Do you know what the dose was?
It was like 0.02. It was like any.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. And do you still microdose to this day?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I take 0.4 before every work.
Got it. And now, obviously, not exactly an NSF certified supplement. Did your teammates, did any coaches know about this, or was this a overt operation?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Some of my teammates would be like, hey, buddy, your pupils are like, you look crazy right now. And I'm like, yeah, dude. And they asked me, like, yeah, I'll go taking mushrooms. So did you ever get out there, stems and shit? It's not like that. It's just a tincture. It was like liquid. It was in a liquid form.
Right.
I did that when I was playing, but now I take it. I have it broken down into like pills and stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever get out there and just get hit with an epiphany? You know what? Football is just this man-made construct, and just have some of those. Yeah.
No, it was like I was like summoning my Viking ancestors, and we're going to go fucking rape and pillage.
I microdosed myself for over a year. I never used it pre-workout or in anything performance related. You're actually the second guy who's come on the podcast and endorsed using psilocybin for performance. And this is something, it's something I'm really interested in. And, I had an all-time world record-holding powerlifter on here who had a severe nerve injury. And I mean, sort of a similar thought process, just kind of reconnecting your nervous system to your body. He would take a small dose of mushrooms before training, and suddenly he just had this immensely improved mind-muscle connection. He was able to fire the tissue that had been kind of lying dormant for a year, and just ingraining new movement patterns and just getting into this sort of flow state. And then just having my own experiences with it.
You hit it right on. It's the flow. It's the flow state is something that happens so rarely. It's hard to, because especially in football, because it's not a game that just continues, right? It's like 6 seconds and then stop, 6 seconds and then stop. It's like this. It's like it's terrible for ADHD. Like you're like, oh shit, like an hour stopped, and it's like you just lose the flow as the game goes on. Then there's like TV timeouts, all this other shit. that's what mushrooms did, was put you in a fucking flow state that was just unbreakable. And I do it, and it's the same way now, right? So I had torn both of my hip labrums off the bone. And I never had any hip issues at all ever in my life. And then now I'm like, dude, I can't squat. I can't do any of this. Like, it was miserable. And I've recently started back squatting again. And it's the same thing, man. I took those microdoses, and I'll go into the gym and I'll just like hit those deep squats and just keep it light at first, right? At first I kept it light. Now I'm back to being able to put 405 pounds on my back and go ass to grass for 5-6 reps. And it's like, I haven't been able to do that since, been forever since I've been able to, and it just feels good. And it was the same thing, man. All that tissue in there, and that just wasn't really like firing, is now I was able to like get out of that hole and feel fire, and, doing things like hack squats and stuff like that really helped too. Walking lunges and shit like that, just anything to like really get the hip firing. It's just really helped.
Yeah. Big pharma does not want psychedelic therapy to be a thing, but they want you on the antidepressants, the pharmaceutical pills, and all those sorts of things. But
that's what they tried to do to me in 2013. After I got out of that seizure, I was like, they're like, "Oh, you're just depressed." And I'm like, "What do you mean? I just had a seizure." I'm like, you mean I'm depressed?
Did they try to put you on an FSRI or?
Yeah, I've never trusted my government. I've never trusted doctors ever, never. And that's like the first thing they tell you. Any veteran, when you walk into an NFL locker room, the veterans, like the guys that used, like, there was an older player. He played like 12 years in the D line. He's like, "Don't trust anybody." That was the first advice he gave me. He's like, "Don't trust anybody." Like, they're all trying to take it. They're just trying to use you up and spit you out. He's like, "So don't trust anybody." And I was like, okay. So like, I just immediately just didn't trust anyone when I got to.
Yeah, there's truth to that. I mean, at the end of the day, all the employees in the NFL, team docs, they've got pressure just to get guys on they don't really care about your well-being.
No,
they need you on the field for a few years, and then you're gone. Then they bring in fresh meat, right?
Yeah, their job is to get you on the field, right? And your job is to like make sure that you're not going out there and gonna fuck your career up.
Yeah,
because like everything's on tape, and I'm not gonna go out there. You want to go out there and put bad tape? Okay, well, if you're not gonna do it, somebody else will. So now you're in a conundrum where you have to decide, okay, am I gonna go, or am I gonna? I always made the choice to just go. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go.
Did you have any experience? You said you'd taken some bigger doses. Have you done, a macro dose of psilocybin and, had, an ego death, like the real, some enlightening experiences from it?
I had an ego death with DMT.
Oh, let's go into that.
Yeah, so I did DMT 2 years ago. So right after retirement, I did it. I did like like with somebody that knew what they were doing, like a shaman. And
was this like an ayahuasca setting, or just like a ripping DMT out of a crack pipe type thing?
No, it was like a vaporizing pen.
Yeah,
but it was in like a controlled space. It wasn't like in the rainforest or anything, but it was in like a controlled space. And it was incredible, man. It was, for me, the ego death was, it's hard to explain to people that haven't done it, and you sound like a whack job when you talk about it, but it was like, I was in another dimension. It felt like I was in another dimension. I was just in a black room, and I could see a little pinhole of light. So I just kind of like started working my way towards that light. And then it was like this voice was telling me, kind of guiding me, and was like, "What do you want to do?" Like, asked me what I wanted to do. And I was like, I just want to like explore. And it took me around. I went to a room where, all of my memories were on a string, and like trauma memories were in red. It looked like the movie Tron, like the way the lights were just like rolling up this like waterfall of light. and I could look in there, I could look down and grab with my hands and look at memory. And I remember picking up this one memory, and I asked if I was like, can I just cut this out? And they were like, no, you need that. And I was like, I need it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then it's only 8 minutes that you're in there. And I came out the first time and I was like, fuck, I want to go back in. And he was like, all right, let's go back in there. And you just like, you take a rip and you have to hold it for as long as you can. And then you let it out and then you have to like put something black over your eyes to keep, because if not, you'll just see a bunch of geometrical shapes. You have to like really sensory deprive yourself.
Right.
And so I laid back again and I went back. And the guide was like, oh, you're back. I was like, yeah. And they were like, I got something for you. And I just felt this like warm, it wasn't even really warm. It was kind of like cooling, this blue light that kind of like wrapped around me. And I felt a feeling that was very similar to like the love that that I feel from my daughter, that unconditional love. But a mother's unconditional love is different. I never felt it. And I was able to feel that in that moment. And the guide, whatever was guiding me, said, you could stop using that as a crutch now. Now you know what it is. And that was like the ego. Because I came out and I was like, I wasn't angry about that. I wasn't angry about that feeling anymore. It was just the best, man, it was the best fucking feeling ever. And I was just like, sweet.
Did that stick with you?
Yeah.
Was it fleeting? It stuck with you all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You hear a lot of reports about that, the DMT experience that really just triggers a legitimate change, a perspective change, or, you finally let go of that thing that's been haunting you, right? It always seems like when you have a psychedelic experience that you're going to be confronted with, if you've got a demon, right, that's been unaddressed or just something on your soul, it seems like you always get confronted with it. And it might be emotional, it might be overwhelming in the moment, but then you walk away from it and it's like you let it go, or you know what you need to do moving forward to address it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you used like the word they when you were describing the DMT experience. It seems like there's always kind of that ambiguous they, the them, the other, just kind of that it feels like there's something else with you, right?
Oh, there's somebody in there. There's something.
Yeah.
There's something kind of guiding me. I came out and I went back in and they were like, what do you want to see? And I was like, where do we come from? And this is where it gets a little bit trippy. So
I can resonate with this stuff. I have a similar experience I'll touch on when you're done, but like I can very much understand what you're describing.
So we go through these halls and then there's a screen and they're like, here's human that I'm being explained that humans were created as slaves for this race of giants. I was like, what? And eventually the giants kind of died out and now the planet is ruled by humans. And I was like, what the? I was just like, I couldn't comprehend it. It didn't really it made sense to me, but I was like, okay, I don't know what that was. I'm going to go ahead. I want to get out now. I was like, I want out. That was the first time that was the only time during that experience that I felt like a little overwhelmed by what I just see.
Right.
I wanted to get out of there, but I don't know. That's the other thing. You never know. I could have been watching some documentary, or some stupid YouTube thing, a month before that. And that could have just been in my subconscious and was playing tricks on me, but you never know.
Yeah, maybe, this was a few years ago. I did, what you would call a hero's journey with mushrooms, where you take a big enough dose where you complete ego death. Like you are not you anymore. And I'd had a few number of mushroom experiences before that, and they're all incredible, therapeutic and emotional. It was sad, it was happy, but very enlightening in different ways. But I finally tried this big dose. It was, I think it was an 8-gram dose, and I made it into a lemon tech. So, infuse lemon juice into the ground up mushrooms, and it pre-metabolizes the psilocybin, so it hits your system quicker.
Oh yeah.
And you make it into a tea and drink it. But this particular experience, the whole thing, it was like I was trying to download a software onto an old PC that was too old to handle the information. Like I was getting all this information that I couldn't quite comprehend. It was like I was being shown this incredible wealth of knowledge, but I couldn't quite grasp it. And I remember I had this epiphany, and I remember sitting up and I'm like in tears, just elated, like I just figured out the answer to everything. And then it was gone. And I don't remember what it was, and there was, I also had kind of the presence of the other in there with you. And I lost track of, I was like, is this the real world, or is the real world the made up world? Like, which is the real reality? And then, I get back and I had written a note in my phone. I don't remember writing the note, but it said, "Good and bad are not real. You made that up."
Right.
That was something I had written in my phone during the experience.
It's not to cut you off, but I had a very similar experience when you talk about, like, you have this epiphany, and it's like, oh, that's what. So I'm out of retirement. I'm retired, right? And I'm doing this DMT, and I'm like, okay. So the next time I drop in, after I figure out that we're all designed to be slaves, and I was like, okay, what's my purpose? And I go in there, and it's like it gets laid out. I remember being laid out for me, and I was like, oh, right, because it was like, how it was with football. It was like, this is the goal, this is the path, this is how it happens, and you do it. Well, my path was like shown to me, and I couldn't remember it when I left. And I tried to go back the next time and get it again, and they're like, nope, like, sorry, and then I was like, because I asked the guy, I said, how do I know when I'm done? When I'm done, like, going back? And they're like, you'll know. And after that happened, I went back again, and they were like, no.
Yeah. It's like it's unlocking this part of your brain that we just don't have access to in our normal mortal life. And like, you want to be able to understand and comprehend it all, but you just can't. And after that experience I had that I described, I actually haven't done it again. It was, and I'm sure I will at some point, but it was, it's not something like weed where you just do it for fun. Oh yeah. You just do it any day. It's like it's an ordeal. It's like a clear your schedule ordeal.
Yeah. It's a commitment. It's hard when you have kids, wife and job and all this other shit that you got to do. Yeah. That's the same thing with me. I'd love to be able to do that like once a month,
Yeah. And for people listening to this, I don't want to just like, casually endorse this stuff. I would say to anyone who's interested in trying this, don't use it and then go to a rave or go to a party. Like, have a purpose with it. If you're ever going to experiment with this, like, respect it.
Yeah.
The people who I've seen have terrifying, horrific experiences with it were the ones who were trying to use it as like a party drug, right? I would recommend, if you're going to try it, do it in the safety of your own home, have someone there that you trust and you love, and go into it with a purpose, right? Yeah. Go into it wanting to come out better. Don't do it just for fun, right? But, if you do it right, almost always you're going to take something away from it, incredibly therapeutic, incredibly beneficial. And it's a shame to see all the stigma against it, but, it seems like it's becoming a lot more accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think people are starting to realize that, well, especially because, the other aspect to it is that I've noticed a huge change in the way my brain works. Mm-hmm. And, I realized I've done a lot of damage to my brain, right? I know I have. I've been playing full contact football since I was 7 years old. And it was, when I was learning how to play, it was put your top of your head through their chin. That's
right.
You want to, like, and then you learn how to come off when you're coming off the ball, like you're trying to hit him in his chin and knock his head back. Like that's, so I'm like, I took so many TBIs, and then not to mention like, you tackle somebody and like 15 people jump on a pile and you're getting hit in the head 5 or 6 times in one play, and it's all of that kind of builds up. And I noticed that when I really started to like change up the microdose and use it for different purposes, as far as like, okay, I'm going to mix like some lion's mane in there, and I'm going to do this and that, like put all these different mushrooms, all these different non-psychedelic mushrooms in with the psilocybin. And man, I really noticed a change in my brain and, my mood, and that just like the depression and anxiety that would just like sneak up on me. It doesn't really do that. It does every now and then, but it's not as hard to climb out of that hole.
Yeah. And that's why that's the purpose I use the microdosing myself for, was sort of as an antidepressant and anti-anxiety, because that's something that I struggled with, a few years back. And this, it gave me more relief than any pharmaceutical intervention ever did. And are you familiar with Paul Stamets?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's a big advocate for kind of stacking the microdose of psilocybin, like you said, with the lion's mane and other non-psychedelic strains of mushrooms that just have, different interactions with the brain or the nervous system. If anyone listening to this, check out Paul Stamets. He's a mycologist. I believe that's the correct term for it, but just a leading expert in mushrooms in general. It's really interesting stuff. But let me ask you this. Now, you went into a little bit like a 2-day coma when you had that injury, didn't you?
The seizure, yeah. When I had the seizure. Yeah, I was in a coma for 36 hours.
When you were in the comatose state, do you recall anything from that?
Nothing.
I was curious to see if, during that coma, if there were any, DMT like experiences, while you were under, kind of that near death experience people sometimes report.
It was just dark. I just was like, when I woke up, I felt like zero time had passed.
Interesting.
So I felt
it's a crazy thing.
I was on a bus at the airport getting ready to jump on a plane to go to Kansas City to play. So when I woke up, I was like, hey, I thought I was dehydrated. My last thought was, oh, I'm dehydrated. That's why I feel like this. And then I'm out. And when I woke up, I was like, hey, did you guys give me an IV? Can I still play? And they were like, dude, the game happened. I'm like,
jeez, is that really trippy experience? Realizing the days have passed.
Well, the really trippy part was when the nurses would come in, they were super. So I was tied to the bed too, with like restrained gloves on my hands. And I was like, what happened in here? And the nurses were all very standoffish, very like edgy with, like, they were like keeping their distance from me. And I'm like I like joke around a lot. So I'm like making jokes. I'm like all wrapped up. My head's all wrapped up and I'm like making jokes and stuff. And the lady's like, hey, sorry if like people are being standoffish. It's because you threw 3 different nurses on the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, or 2 days ago. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, they kept giving you tranquilizers and you just kept throwing people and it was like pissing you off worse. So like, they're like, your heart rate is at 16 beats a minute and you're ripping IVs out of your arm and throwing people around.
Damn. And no recollection of any of that.
None. I don't remember any of it. I was on drugs. They were like, what kind of drugs they were asking my teammates and stuff, like, did he take any drugs? Like, and they're like, no.
Yeah, my wife was a nurse in the neuro ICU and dealt with a lot of situations like that where a patient would come in and there's some sort of traumatic brain injury or whatever, and then they're they aggressive out of body experience and attacking nurses out of control. And of course, a guy like at your size, I mean, that's a scary sight for those nurses. Can you tell the story of the injury just from the beginning? A lot of people don't know this at all.
Yeah, so Vaughn wasn't playing, so they like I had to slide out and play like outside. And I'm coming down the line of scrimmage, like the whole line moves and coming down the line of scrimmage. The tight end tries to cut me, or the tight end comes across the ball and tries to cut me. It was before that rule was implemented where you could still come across. He comes and tries to cut my legs out. So I play the cut block and kind of sprawl. And as I'm like going to look up, the fullback is coming through and he hit me right here. And it just like, when it hit my head, like my spine just went. And I was like, that felt weird. And I was going to get off the ground and I felt like I was sitting on the toilet for too long. So I felt like my whole body was just like falling asleep.
Yeah.
And when I went to push off the ground, it was like I was pushing straight into the ground. Like I felt like my hand was just going straight into the ground. I couldn't push myself. And then my mouth wouldn't move. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I was stuck on my face, like on the ground like that. I was just stuck. And they like rolled me over, and I don't really remember anything after that. I didn't fall asleep or anything, but I was just like, that was really out of body because I just like I disassociated from what was happening.
Yeah.
So we get to the hospital and they take me into the ER and they give me an MRI and an X-ray and all this other shit. And they're like, oh, you don't have anything broken. You're good. And I was like, they're like, we should probably stay overnight though, because because I started feeling my legs again on the ride in the ambulance, and I kind of knew I was gonna be up.
Real quick, not to cut you off. During that ride, I mean, did you think you were paralyzed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming probably carried off the field in the stretcher and the headboard, and I'm sure your teammates are horrified seeing all this. So, I mean, what was it like in that ride thinking you might be paralyzed?
It was, like I said, man, I disassociated.
Yeah.
I acted like it wasn't me. Like this isn't happening to me. And then I started feeling my foot. I could feel my foot again. Like the blood, I could feel the blood going in there. Like, and then I could feel them touching it. And I was like, oh, okay. But the scary part was I still couldn't feel, like my upper half was still, I could move my mouth now at that point. Like my mouth was moving. I was like, be able to make words again. Instead of just like I was just grunting, and, but my arms were completely numb still, both of my arms. And, I could feel my, like the right side of my chest was really numb, and it was still really weird. And then finally at the hospital, once the doctor came in there and showed me the MRIs and the X-rays and stuff, I could feel like most of my arm, I could feel like I could move them again. Everything was moving again. I was just really stiff, and they put me in this neck brace. They're like, we're going to keep you overnight. I said, fuck that. I said, take me to the airport, put me on the plane with the guys. And when I walked on that plane, people were looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I just was like, dude, I'm not staying here. We were in Seattle. I'm not staying now.
Yeah.
And then like I said, man, they told me I had a bad stinger. And I was like, okay. And they were like, I was like, well, why was I paralyzed? And they're like, well, like when you turn the lights off in a warehouse, how they just flip off. And then when you turn them back on, it's like, takes a while for those lights to get to full brightness again. That's kind of what happened. I was like, okay. And 2 weeks later, I was playing in week 1.
Damn. Seems like a little bit of an overly casual diagnosis of the situation. Did you feel like they kind of just brushed it off, swept it under the rug, or do you think they legitimately believe that's all it was?
Yeah, that's what they didn't know anything else. They just were like, oh, that's what it was. There's nothing, there's no breaks, there's no ruptured discs. You're fine. And what it was is even for someone my size, I have twice as much spinal fluid around my spinal cord than anybody even my size.
Yeah.
For some reason. Like just the way it is.
In today's football, they're so much more conservative with the concussion protocols and all those things. I'm sure if that had happened to you today, like you probably would have been out for the rest of the season. And, in dealing with the concussions in football, it feels like there's always a lot of pressure on the player because, it's all kind of based on subjective symptoms, right? How do you feel and headaches and all that. So many times you'll have the position coach, kind of pressuring the kid. Like, no, if you tell the doctors this, then they're going to hold you out another week. Then that puts the player in the bad situation because maybe they're still feeling symptoms, but they've got their coach telling them, don't tell the doctors this or that. Concussions are there. It's a touchy thing because, it's a injury you could fake. Like if you want to miss a few weeks, you can just say I have headaches and then you question yourself, do I still have a concussion? Am I just being a bitch? And
Oh yeah.
coach is pressuring you. But then you have a situation like yours, which probably legitimately life-threatening and can affect you obviously years down the road when you have a traumatic brain or spinal cord injury like that.
Oh yeah. And and it did. I got through in 2016, so after we won the Super Bowl that next season, I got face masked real bad. Like the center reached, I beat the guard and the center like came to help and I'm getting away from him and he reached down and grabbed me by the face mask and like yanked by my face mask, like ripped my head around my body, it lifted my legs off. It was bad. And it's just like, I don't know what that did, but that sucked because then the next season, I couldn't even like open a doorknob. I couldn't turn a doorknob like with my right arm, like something was going on. And then 2018 comes and I had something, I couldn't make it through the season again. I get to like week 13, 14 and I'm like, dude, I can't feel my arm. Something is wrong. And then they were like, I went to this doctor in LA and he's like, yeah, you have spinal stenosis. So like your spine, at C6, C7, where your nerves come out, it's got a bunch of bone spurs poking out of there and it's like clamping down on your nerve. And all of your facets in your neck are torn as well. I was like, oh, so I've been playing with torn muscles in my neck for 2 years because they didn't want to like admit that something was wrong.
Yeah.
They were just trying to get me through. And it sucked, man. I had to go through that surgery and I came back, played every single game that next season. So I did stem cells on all those sets instead of like surgically repairing them. And that really helped. And then they cleaned out that stenosis and it was like, man, I woke up from surgery and I was like, I didn't realize how numb my arm actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet. Did you, after some of these injuries, did you kind of have any fear in you of playing? Just kind of that inhibition, that hesitation of worry of am I going to be paralyzed this next play type thing?
No, I like I said, man, I'm good at disassociating.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly seems like a major, theme with you, just kind of that fearlessness, fuck it, dissociative, and a lot of the best athletes, they have that, right? They're not overthinkers. They're not warriors. They kind of just go with the flow and take life as it comes. Do you carry any resentment for some of the, possible misdiagnosis, mistreatment of some of those things that occurred during your career?
Yeah.
Resentment towards the docs, the trainers, whoever was involved?
Not so much the docs and the trainers. They just didn't really know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
They just, that's the thing about these doctors, man. It's all by the book.
Right.
So when something happens that's not in the book, they don't know what the hell to do. And that's kind of what it was. Where I was pissed, what it pisses me off is that I didn't have like a parent to be there to like kind of help me navigate this shit and like tell me like, hey, maybe you should like take care of yourself, dude. Like you have to like, I never had that. It was always like, just play. I didn't have to worry about, my mom being like upset if I got hurt, it was just play. It was like, this started from the age of 7. Like my first football game, I got like high load and my ankle got broken and my stepdad was like, put me in a pussy. And I just played the rest of the season on a broken ankle.
Yeah. Did any of the, having that kind of childhood, that upbringing, did that manifest in off the field issues in your younger years?
Oh yeah. It was a fucking nightmare for a little while. Yeah.
Any, trouble with the law in college, in high school,
No,
or?
I just would. I mean, I just didn't take any shit from it. I had
No.
I had a short fuse, and especially when I drink, that's why I don't really drink anymore, because I had a short fuse, and I'd kind of black out. It's like a blind rage.
Yeah.
You can really fuck somebody up or get yourself fucked up in doing that. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of random fist fights and outbursts, and sure, really have a really hard time with authority, like just
Yeah, I'm sure.
just that kind of stuff, and yeah, it carried on, but I've done a ton of work on myself, to address it, because it's like, you can sit around and be pissed off all you want, but if you're not going to do anything, you can't blame your parents forever, right? Like, you have to at some point take responsibility as an adult and make the changes that you have to become a better father, a better husband, better, teammate, like whatever it is that you're trying to do, you have to be the best version of yourself. And, I had to do a lot of work to get, and I'm still working, and it's every day for me. I have to do something every day to try to, make to better myself.
Yeah. Looking back, just knowing how you've turned out now, and the success you've had, and do you wish things had been different now, looking back at your childhood, or do you sort of look back on it and say, you know what, as shitty as it was, it's allowed me to become the man that I am today?
I wish I could sit here and, and lie and say, yeah, I'm glad. But no,
Right.
it fucking sucked, and it sucks still. It sucks whenever like an argument with my wife happens. I don't know how to fucking act, because
Yeah.
I don't know. My view of like an argument was not the same as most people.
Mhm.
Whenever, and I don't, and then when the parenting shit comes along, like when I was a kid, if I didn't do what I was told, I got my ass beat. So it's like, so now I have to I've had to it's frustrating, because I'm constantly having to learn new techniques on how I'm supposed to manage a situation. And I just wish that I would have been taught that shit as a kid, and would have been shown that as a kid, and shown what a good relationship, shown how you're supposed to talk to your kids and this and that. It's just not, it's not easy. But life's not supposed to be easy, I guess. But, sometimes I do feel sorry for myself, and I get pissed off about it.
Yeah.
I dig out of that pretty quick, but it's like, I don't know what I don't know sometimes. It's growing up that way has made me a little bit impulsive, so I do make impulse decisions because I'm like, this will make me happy, so I'm just always chasing happiness. And then when you realize that especially buying things isn't going to make you happy, then, having experiences in life is what makes you happy, and
Right.
raising good kids, and hearing somebody tell you that your kid is awesome to be around. That's the stuff that's really meaningful, and, so yeah, it sucks to have to go through that shit. And I don't wish that on anybody. It sucks.
No, I mean, it's good to hear you. It's good to hear you say that. I mean, people who go through stuff like that, maybe you hear about, the fairy tale, happy ending. Oh yeah, maybe a better man, and now everything's perfect, everything's great. But no, I mean, just to hear you straight up.
When people say that, man, they're full of shit. They've lied to themselves. And I'm not saying that maybe that's the way they cope with it, but they're full of shit, man, because you don't want to have it, everybody, you should have adversity in your life, right? But you should also, as a young boy needs a good father figure, and he needs a mother's love. And those two things are important in developing a good human. And I didn't have that. And, I had to find my own people to look up to. And then it sucks, because then you find these people to look up to, and those people turn out to be pieces of shit too. And it's you can get jaded, and it makes you not really trust anybody and think everybody's fucked and everybody's a piece of shit. And, it's just, it makes you into like a negative person.
Yeah.
You know? And I try to work really hard to be like a positive person, but man, it's hard to be positive all the time whenever you've had so much negativity in your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important for people to hear that, like, hey, you're not perfect still. Like, you're working on that yourself, and you still have your own demons that you have to battle. And it's an ongoing thing, you know, probably for the rest of your life. And that sucks, but at least you're aware of it. At least you recognize that, and you're taking steps in the right direction. I mean, that's all you can do, right?
And I would say, you know, honestly, man, like if there's one thing that I wish I could change about the whole thing, going through the hardness of life and everything, like, yeah, that's great for like molding you into like a piece of steel, right? But when you only have to worry about yourself, it turns you into a selfish person.
Yeah.
So when you have to like think of other people's feelings and their emotions, I live in a house full of girls, so it's just, you know, and I've lived my whole life just worrying about myself, you know, and like this past, you know, 9 years of marriage, I've had to like really, and then I get reminded all the time, like, hey, you're only thinking of yourself. You realize that. And I just like, that's my default, is to just worry about myself.
Yeah.
And survive, you know, and that's the one thing that I wish I could change about. Like, if I could just go in there, flip a switch and get rid of that, that's the one thing that I wish I could do, is go in there and just get rid of that selfishness. Because it sucks, man. It sucks to hear your wife be like, man, it's, you know, babe, it feels like you only care about yourself. And it's like, she's right. You know, it's, you know, she's right, because I've had to live that way. And that doesn't make it okay to treat her like she doesn't fucking. So I have to take the steps to do it. And that's the other thing. What steps is that? Oh, I'm going to go talk to a fucking therapist? That doesn't work. But I'm just going to sit here and talk about the shit that pisses me off. Like, that's just going to make me more angry.
Yeah.
You know, that's not going to work. So yeah, man, it's just figuring out different, you know, holistic ways to like get your mind right, take care of your own mental health. Right. And you know, the old saying, you can't take care of anybody unless you can take care of yourself first. Right. But fuck, man, if you're spending every hour of the fucking day trying to keep yourself from jumping off a cliff, how are you supposed to be a good dad? How are you supposed to be a present husband? How are you supposed to do any of those things? Right. And that's the hard part of all of that, is that I have to like, I spend so much energy regulating my own emotions that sometimes I don't have anything left for anybody else.
Yeah. And you know that the selfishness habit, it's hard to chase greatness in anything without being. Guys, thank you for tuning in and supporting the podcast. I just wanted to take a minute to give a shout out over to my guys at Troponin Supplements. So they're the sponsor of the podcast, and in my opinion, they carry the best supplements on the market, and it's not even close. And they're the one company that I've wanted to align myself with. As a nutrition coach working with NFL football players, other professional athletes, strongman competitors, bodybuilders, powerlifters, fitness enthusiasts, endurance athletes, I have to be very particular about any supplement company I endorse. And with Troponin Supplements, frankly, it was a no-brainer. These are the products I've been using myself for the last few years, before I ever became involved with the company. I know the owner personally, Justin Harris. He is one of the brilliant minds in the bodybuilding industry, and we've talked, and all he has wanted to do is just bring some of the elite top-of-the-line products to the market, and that's what he's done. So these are the products I recommend and endorse to all my athletes, all my clients. I use myself, and I want to pass this along to you guys as well. So I'm going to highlight a couple products here. First and foremost, we've got the ATP. This is a high dose of caffeine paired with a very powerful nootropic. I take this before work. I take this before I podcast. This is going to give you a great boost in mood, in focus, memory enhancement. You're just going to feel like you took the Limitless pill when you use ATP. It's an effervescent tablet. You drop it in your water, it dissolves, tastes great. The next product, Field Rations. This is the premier intra-workout supplement on the market right now. It's a one-stop shop for all your intra-workout needs. It's based in highly branched cyclic dextrin, contains essential amino acids, electrolytes, tastes amazing. I use this within every training session. Then we've got the Suppressor Max. This is awesome for controlling your blood sugar. It's got a high dose of berberine, but then has complementary ingredients that are going to keep the berberine bioavailable and stay in your system longer. This is the best blood sugar product on the market. If you're bulking, if you're eating a ton of food, if you're using a cheat meal, this is a great product for you. And then finally, I love this one. I've always had sleep issues. Hit the Rack. This is one of the best sleep products I've ever tried. I use it about 30 minutes before bed most nights, and this has been the one supplement that has actually helped me fall asleep and stay asleep. And then of course, we got the Troponin T logo bodybuilding jersey and the hat. We've got great apparel on the site. So guys, check out Troponin supplements. You can find the link in the show notes, in the bio, or you can simply just Google Troponin supplements. Use code HECK, capital HECK, at checkout for a discount. Check them out, guys. These are some of the best products on the market. Selfish, right? Like if you're trying to be the best at anything, you have to athlete, a CEO, whatever, you don't have balance, right? You got to be selfish. You got to step on toes to get to the top. You got to focus as an athlete on your body constantly, right? And that's part of what allowed you to be a great athlete and have the career that you did. But then the other edge of that sword is it negatively affects relationships and kind of alienates the world. And I've had to deal with that myself. I've had that same kind of selfish habit ingrained as an athlete, then going into, bodybuilding and powerlifting, strongman. It's an individual sport. You're worried about your meals, your training, your recovery. And it's hard to give equal effort to the other components of your life.
Yeah, that's the hardest. That's why, like, if you're going to be the best at anything, man, you could throw balance up.
Yeah.
There can't be any balance, right? There is no work-life balance bullshit. Like, no, you're going to grind to get to that goal. And, I had this, it's crazy because I had this mentality when I was a single guy. My mentality was that if you become a distraction, you're gone. And that was like the simple rule that I had. If you became a distraction, see ya. And, but it didn't matter if it was a friendship or a friendship with old teammates and old friends, or relationships with women. If you became a distraction and you wanted to be, you were being high maintenance, like, you're out of here, you're a distraction.
Yeah.
And then one day a woman came along that I felt like, she was the perfect distraction. And, but I had to really work, man. And she fucking stuck it out with me and continues to stick it out with me. Cause I'm just like, I'm still a work in progress. I'm only 35 years old. I'm still trying to figure this shit out too. It's hard because I had no blueprint.
Yeah. Having a good woman in your life can be an incredibly positive impact. So, you said 9 years with your wife?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I'm sure there's been hard parts about that, as there is with any marriage, but I'm sure it's helped make you a better man.
Oh yeah. That's the perfect thing about marriage, man. If somebody tells you their marriage is perfect, they're full of shit, because you put two people in a house and then you've had kids and all this other shit. Like, you're gonna fucking you're gonna be pissed off at each other. That's just gonna happen. And it's about how you deal with that, right? Like, the way that I processed it is I don't ever want my daughters to think that it's okay for somebody to yell at them, right? So I try to do my very best not to like get so mad that I like raise my voice.
Right.
Obviously I fail all the time at that, but it's like, if I could do that as little as possible and not scream and yell and fucking get angry. And when I talk to my daughter, if I talk to my 5-year-old daughter, I come down to her level and like, remember, she's 5 years old. Like, it's those things that take time. And man, it's just, I think the most important decision you can make in life is who you decide to marry, man or woman. Yeah, you could decide that that's your partner, that's your life. Who you decide that's going to be is the most important decision you're ever going to make. And, I got lucky because shit, man, being in the NFL, there's a lot of options and a lot of shitty options too.
Yeah, there are. And, kind of like with your team, with your teammates, we talked about, you fight them, you're trying to kill them, but then afterwards you're best friends again. You can have that in a marriage where you can fight and be at each other's throat, but at the end of the day, you just got to step back, realize you're on the same team, and not let those fights and conflicts develop into resentment. Now, obviously, with your wife, you don't want it to be the same aggressive, physical voice raising as we had as football players. That's my default when I get back to do a corner in the argument, is the voice starts raising, and I'm starting to go into the alpha male mode, and it's just that's who I am, right? And then my wife hates that. She's like, you cannot go berserk like that, raising your voice. And I'm like, but that's just how we do it. We're football players, we're men. I've really had to, work on controlling that.
I'll give you an example. Just the other day, I didn't even realize I was like raising my voice, but I wasn't even mad at her. I was mad at something else. I was frustrated and like overwhelmed by something else. And she just like kind of caught the stray bullet of it. My wife she don't put up with that shit. Like, so she's like, fuck you, like, who the fuck are you talking to?
Yeah. Well, for us, it's not a big deal. Like when we were fighting with our teammates, our voices are raised, we're motherfucking each other, we're getting physical. To us, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But then you get out into the civilian world and, it is a big deal.
Yeah. It's not normal. It's not normal behavior.
But going into some of the, the better moments, the more positive moments of your playing career, you narrowly avoided the first round, correct? You were pick 36.
Yeah.
Did you feel snubbed? Did you feel?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I was a defensive player of the year in the Big East. I had Ndamukong Suh numbers, and I'm like, I'm the strongest kid. I really felt like I took it as like, okay, it's because I'm a white guy.
The old scouting report of the white D lineman, the hard worker, high motor, limited athletically.
Yeah, I'm like, limited athletically, dude. What are you talking about? Like, it just, I don't know why that happened. Just the way it happened, man. A couple teams traded out of the first round, and it all worked out the way it was supposed to. You know what I mean? But still, I mean, that's like $5 or $6 million that I would have extra. I would have,
Were you at the draft?
No, I was never been doing it.
Was it the old draft day party at home, expecting to go on day one, and then day one comes and goes, and you're sitting there with your family and friends, pissed off?
Yeah, it was embarrassing as fuck. I was with the family that I lived with in high school.
Yeah.
They were great people, but they were hard on me, and kind of treated me like the dumb farmhand, and and then I was like, they were like, you're not going to go in the first round, and I was like, I'm going to go in the first round, watch. And we had like a little draft party, and I didn't go in the first round, and I was so fucking embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then that next day, I went and did one of the hardest workouts I've ever done in my life. It was like 75-pound kettlebell. You do one kettlebell swing, 25 burpees, all the way till you get to 25 kettlebell swings and one burpee. And I just punished myself. And then I came back, and then I got back to the farm, and then I went and like cleaned out some pig stalls or something. And then the draft happened, and then my name got called, but I was just like, I was still fucking pissed. Like, I was mad, and I was like, okay. So I just took that chip, and it just ran with that chip on my shoulder.
Did the Broncos have a first round pick that year? Or you were the first pick?
I was their first pick.
Got it. And then you had the opportunity you played with Von Miller, you played with Peyton Manning, you played with DeMarcus Ware. I mean, you were on some great defenses in your time in Denver.
Oh yeah, man. So when I first got into the building, I was third string, and training camp, I was third string, and took both of their jobs. I just was like, I will not be denied, and took both their jobs. Ryan Clady was the tackle that I was going against every day. So he's like an all pro, and, he was like, he's better than both, and,
yeah.
So that earned me the starting job, and shit, I thought we were going to win a Super Bowl that first year, and we got beat in the playoffs by the Ravens. And I was like, and then then the next year I had a seizure and didn't get to play in the Super Bowl. We got blown out. And then that third year we got beat by the Colts. We were number one seed in the AFC all three of those years. Then the year that our offense was the worst, our defense turned out to be fucking phenomenal. And we were firing on all cylinders. Me, Vaughn, Malik Jackson, Shaq Barrett, DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, Chris Harris Jr., Darian Stewart, TJ Ward. The Danny Trevathan, Brandon, the list goes on that defense where we were just like stacked. And, we put together one of the best seasons the defense has ever had. Our playoff run was unmatched, is to be able to do that. And, when we go and win a Super Bowl and then Peyton retires and then we have 4 years of shit. It was, we had the number one defense for, that in 2016 too. And we still just could not make it to the playoffs, with 9 wins and didn't get us in.
Yeah, that defense was stacked. My dad coaching for the Chiefs. Obviously, you guys are division rivals. Just, watching your defense over the years, obviously frustrating for our household. And Von Miller was always one of my favorite guys to watch. I was an offensive tackle, but I always loved watching pass rushers. How was Von? What was it like being his teammate?
We played next to each other. So Vaughn and I played next to each other for 8 years straight. And we had 136 sacks together.
Jeez.
So
probably not many tandem total sack counts that's got to be up there.
I don't know. But I just know that we had like a nonverbal communication going on where we just would run pass rush games on people. And, you add that with his freak ability to run a 4.4 and be like 3 inches from the ground somehow. It was incredible to watch him work sometimes. Like just the shit he was able to do was so fun.
Were you able to learn anything from him, or was he one of those players that's like, don't watch his film, you can't replicate that?
Don't listen. Anybody that follows Vaughn around is gonna be out of the league soon because Vaughn is an anomaly. But DeMarcus Ware, I played with Elvis Dumerville too. Elvis was one of those guys that worked his ass off, and he was like a good person to look up to. Then DeMarcus came, and DeMarcus was another guy to look up. I'm not saying Vaughn's not a good guy to look up to. I'm just saying that, like, his ability is unmatched. It's unbelievable, But then you got a guy like DeMarcus who just works his ass off, and he has that freakish ability. Like DeMarcus Ware walked into the weight room one day. This is at like 32 years old. Grabs 405 and starts. I thought he was going to do like deadlifts. He starts hand cleaning it for 10 reps, like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit. And then he starts talking about like Larry Allen, how Larry Allen would walk into the weight room with a big dip in his lip, put 5 plates on each side on the incline press and just start repping that shit out. Like,
being in strongman, powerlifting, bodybuilding, and then of course having played football and been a strength coach for the last 9 years, I always see some of these players that are just genetic freaks of strength and explosive. And I'm like, God, if only you'd gone the strongman route, or if only you'd gone the bodybuilding route. Some of these dudes in the NFL could have been at the top of strength sports or Olympic weightlifting or any of those things. Let's talk a little bit about training. You were a big weight room guy. What was the influence of the weight room on you, your life, your career, starting at, maybe an early age?
So the high school that I went to, it's in Ohio, man. It's just a bunch of big dudes that, the weight room is like, you're going to lift.
Yeah.
We started lifting at, I remember 7th and 8th grade, we started kind of like, started implementing weightlifting. And then my freshman year, it was like, you go in there and you see all these older guys, all the seniors and stuff. They're, they're squatting 500 and benching, 365. They're moving weight around and you're like, fuck, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I did. I just was like, I'm just going to keep lifting until I'm stronger than everybody. And I had a lot of other strong guys on my team with me too. So we all just like turned into meatheads real quick. And then I wrestled too. So like I was a heavyweight wrestler in Ohio, and it was just I had a good strength coach too. His name was Sam Pruden. You know, he was a garbage man, but he went to school for like strength and conditioning. And I don't know why he didn't like follow that. He just was like our high school strength coach. But
Yeah.
he was like, we're gonna squat and we're gonna run gassers and we're gonna squat again. You know, he just like, and he taught me how to Olympic lift and do all that stuff that like guys that get, you know how it is when you walk into a college weight room, you know, there's a lot of guys that don't even know how to do a power clean. They have no clue. They don't even know how to do a deadlift, and they don't know how to properly squat. They don't know how to do any of that shit. We didn't have great equipment, but we had a lot of iron, and we just competed and pushed ourselves. And then he was like, hey, you're pretty strong. Like, we can, you know, you should try powerlifting. I was like, okay. So I started doing a little bit of powerlifting, and then I started wrestling, and powerlifting was like, couldn't powerlift and wrestle. So,
Right.
so I just focused on the wrestling in the off season, but man, I just loved just seeing how strong I could get. Cause it's like every day, every week, right? So when you're on like a real program, every week you have a number that you're trying to hit. So it's like, it holds you accountable to like get the right amount of sleep and make sure you eat before you come in here and like do all this, do all that. And then that rolled right into college, where I'd walked into Cincinnati, and you know, I wasn't the strongest in there, but I was pretty damn strong. And now I have a real strength coach. And I had Sam Longo or Paul Longo my first 2 years. I don't know, you know who that is?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had him my first 2 years, and that was awesome because he was like a work smarter, not harder type of guy. So I was like, man, this is easy compared to what I was doing in high school. But then I had a guy named Dave Lawson come in, and that fucking guy was a psychopath.
Yeah.
Everything we did was a failure. Everything. It didn't matter. There was no set amount of reps. It was like, if you can do this for 6 reps, that's what we're putting on there. But you're going to try to do 12. Okay. Right. So like, we're squatting until you pass out. Like, we're going to squat until you pass out. And doing that for 2 years, my numbers were so crazy. I loved it. Like, going into my senior year, I loved that so much. And like that energy of like the whole team around you, and you're about to do a big squat for, you know, as many reps as you can, or a big bench, or, you know, a big power clean or something, like, and everybody gets around you, gets all hyped. Like, that's like making it, like, competing and doing that is like making a play on the field and your teammate. Yeah. Same feeling, right? So, you know, Jason Kelsey was a freak at squatting. He could squat, you know, he could take 650 pounds and go to the ground and back up so fast that I just was like, holy shit. And I'm tall. So being tall, you know how that is with squatting. It's just like, it's a whole different game. And man, I got my squat up to like, I was doing 675 for 6 reps.
Wow.
And pretty consistently. And they stopped me there. They're like, you don't need to go any heavier than that.
Yeah.
They just were real careful about that kind of shit. And then like my bench press got crazy. I'm long, man. Like I you know how it is being long, like you're at a disadvantage when it comes to that stuff. And I just never saw it that way. I just saw it as like, how much power can I produce every rep, you know? And I was putting 475 up for 10 reps on the bench.
475 for 10. Okay.
Yeah. Like it was fucking crazy. And I was like, let me put 500 on. They're like, no.
Like, oh, come on. I would have let you go 500.
I know. On there. And it's crazy. I wish they would have filmed this stuff, because like we didn't have, like, we weren't filming and put it, like, now they film everything and put it on, like, you know, you see these videos of guys doing crazy feats of strength in a college weight room. Like, yeah. Did you see that kid? I don't know what school, some small school. He squatted 800 pounds.
Yeah, I did see that.
That's fucking crazy. You know, like, he's a football player. He's squatting 800 pounds. Like, that's incredible.
That's the shit that gets me fired up, man. You know, the max out squat day you described, and the teams gathered around you, got that energy in the weight room. Like, that was my Super Bowl for me. Like, the off-season training, that was my in-season as a football player. And the actual football, like, to me, that was secondary. And that's when I knew I needed to become a strength and conditioning coach. I wanted to compete in powerlifting and strongman. Like, that was my love. And then as a strength and conditioning coach, those are the things that I miss about the team setting, the big the big squat days, just that energy you have in the weight room, and then getting to work with players like you who love the weight room, who love pushing themselves and loading the bar heavy, man.
Oh, I loved it, and I loved everything about it too. Like even like, because we did a lot of 110s, right? So we ran, you guys, I mean, that's like a staple in college football, running 110s. You're to run 110s, and dude, we would run 110s, and I would make sure that I was running those 110s and like I was doing the skill position.
Yeah.
Like I could walk through the line. That's the other thing about wrestling that was great, is it taught you how, like, your cardiovascular just a whole nother level. And if you've pushed yourself to the limit on a wrestling mat, then you've set a whole nother threshold. So like I set this threshold for myself running those 110s, man. I just like, we ran like 50 one day. Like we ran like 50 of them. And I was just like, I would like hit a flow state and like get on the line and just shoot, gone. No problem. Like, with just no problem to do 50, 110 and make the time every single time. Because the reason why you do 50 is because I started out as 30, and you get to like 15 and people start missing. So they keep adding more and more. And
right.
So we'd run till lost and decided we were done. And, but yeah, man, I got so strong, man. It was awesome. I loved it. I loved everything about I loved that feeling of being so strong, grabbing 200-pound dumbbells and and then all the yelling, and you're yelling and screaming when you're, I can't go to the local gym right now and just fucking start screaming and shit. Like I wish I'm by myself. Right. So I can't be just sitting there.
Well, I don't know, man. I might try to plant the seed in your head. You can find a hardcore powerlifting gym, and man, strength is an old man's game. Like you can peak in strength and muscle into your 40s. You'll lose your top end speed, your elasticity, explosive qualities. Those kind of drop off in your late 20s, early 30s. But when it comes to pure grown man strength, and a physique, you see a lot of the top bodybuilders on the Olympia stage. They're 38 years old. Powerlifters, there's been world records set by 45-year-old men. The dad strength, like that's a real thing. But man, you might need to consider diving into either bodybuilding or powerlifting or something. I mean,
well, I think I want to do kind of like a hybrid of that. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to like, I want to do a hybrid of that. And I don't know. That's what, when I started talking, when you first reached out, I was like, I'd seen you on Instagram before. And I was like, dude, this guy's free. Like, how the fuck is he built like that? Like, I want to be built. Like, so that's, maybe I could be a good project for you.
Yeah, no, dude, absolutely. I work with a bunch of NFL guys with nutrition training, and then working with strongmen, powerlifters, bodybuilders, fighters, all that. It's when you get the nutrition in conjunction with a good training program, you just absolutely mutate.
That's what I'm missing right now, is I'm just kind of freeballing, kind of raw dog and everything. I'm in there just like, okay, I'm going to train my chest and tries today. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bench, and then I'm going to do some incline presses, and
and
I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to do all these movements that I know how to do. And then, sometimes I'll see somebody doing another movement. I'm like, oh, that kind of hits that spot that I'm trying to hit. And, it's just, I just need somebody to, forever as a football player, it is, you walk in the weight room, your workout's written up for you.
Right.
So now I walk in there and my workout's not written up for me. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just, I know how to lift and how to train, but I don't know, okay, what do I need to eat before this kind of workout or that workout? How many calories do I need to be putting in my system? And do I need 400 grams of protein? Do I need, how many grams of protein a day am I supposed to eat?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, a guy like you you're a naturally strong guy. And then just the physique that you have, you could be an absolute monster with that stuff when you really get just some good periodization and direction with your training, and especially nutrition. When it comes to transforming a physique, nutrition is almost everything. And then, in football, in a football approach with training, none of that is geared towards being the strongest human you can be, or the most, the leanest, most muscular human you can be. It's all geared towards being a better football player, right? But no, you with a good quality bodybuilding, or in your case, a power building style program, I call it power building, when it's kind of that hybrid of incorporating some heavy strength-based training in conjunction with a lot of hypertrophy bodybuilding style accessory work. You pair that up with, a bodybuilding style of nutrition, and I mean, you won't believe the mutation you'll go through.
That's what I wanted. That's what I'm like looking for.
Yeah. Well,
I've just been looking for the right coach.
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. Once we get off the air here. But you had an accolade coming out of college, right? The strongest player in college football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the fuck were these people when I was around? I had some good numbers when I was a player too.
I didn't even know. Like, so I guess like my strength coaches. So Dave Lawson and they like sent my numbers in to.
They nominated you.
Yeah, they like nominated me and sent all my numbers in. So, I had no idea that I was even. I just assumed that there was a lot of people that are strong as shit, and probably wasn't the strongest, but apparently I was. Man, dude, I'm telling you, dude, I was hang cleaning 450 pounds like it was fucking water. Like,
yeah,
not like catching it ass to grass. I was like catching that. Or power cleaning it, and I was catching it standing straight up. Like I was pulling that kind of crazy weight. And then, like I said, man, like being the bench numbers and everything, because what they did was they took those numbers and they put them in an equation for like what your 1 rep max would be.
Right.
So like my 1 rep max was like, like 575 or something stupid, like, which I don't know if I could have done that or not.
Well, I mean, you said you hit what, 475 for 10?
Yeah.
So you probably had the requisite strength to do it. You just need to train heavy singles, doubles, and triples, and just get neurologically adapted to moving heavy weight for the low reps. But I mean, if you're pushing 475 for 10, you've got the requisite muscle mass and just the requisite raw strength to do that. Just getting into powerlifting, it's very neural based, right? It's a skill, training your body to maximally produce force through the specific movement pattern of a squat. And you start training those, like I said, heavy singles, doubles, getting up into the 500s. I'm sure that probably would have been realistic for you if you ran a powerlifting training cycle. But man, that's badass having that award coming out of college. Honestly, for me, I'm very biased. I would have that, and the Super Bowl ring would be a secondary award for me.
No, it's crazy. I've never cared about the only thing I ever cared about was that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you why. When I was 7 years old, when I was 6 years old, I watched the Green Bay Packers win a Super Bowl. And I was like, I saw Reggie White running. I saw him running around the field with that Lombardi trophy and the shirt over his jersey, the Super Bowl championship shirt and the hat. And I was like, that's what sparked it.
Yeah.
So like all of the other shit until I got to that didn't matter. Like I didn't care about it. Like there's a giant defensive player of the year trophy somewhere. I have no fucking clue where it is. The plaque that I have for being the strongest guy in college football, no clue where that is. No clue. No clue where any of my college rings are. All my Big East rings, no clue where any of those are. All that mattered was that Super Bowl to me. And I was like, that's what I was chasing. So all this other shit didn't matter.
Yeah.
And it was like, but now that I'm older, I'm like, fuck, I wish I had all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. When you finally did win the Super Bowl, what was the feeling of winning it? Was it a relief? Was it everything you hoped it would be?
It was like, when you have sex for the first time and then you're like, I just want to go do it again now.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It felt like I was like, okay, I want to go do it again. It's like a drug.
Yeah.
It's like this drug that you're like, oh, I want it again. I want to go do that again.
I wish I could equate my first sexual experience to a Super Bowl win. It wasn't quite like that for me.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the anticipation.
Yes, I know.
As a teenage boy, like you're anticipating having sex, like it's like so important to you. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, okay, now I want to do it like again, but better.
Right.
It's like, that was the feeling.
Did the years following the Super Bowl win and not winning it again and not getting back to that feeling, was it a depressing feeling? Just like you said, you want to get back to that. You want to go have sex again, right? But then you don't get to do it. Was that frustrating for you?
Yeah, extreme. It sucked. It made football like less fun because,
Yeah.
especially when you're on a team that you're not going to compete for a suit. You're not competing for a suit. You're just like rebuilding, and that's
Right.
it does it sucked. The second 4 years of my career, so from year 5, 6, 7, and 8, I had a great coach that made it a lot of fun, and he like pushed me to be the best I possibly could, which was great. But knowing that we weren't competing for a Super Bowl, that fucking sucked. Like it made like the grind of the season really suck.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it did. My family, my dad, he's won 3 Super Bowls now in the last few years with Kansas City, and once you win it, there's just this immense pressure. Like, can we do it again? Right. And you've got the target on your back now. And, everyone wants to win the Super Bowl. So few people ever have the opportunity to get there. But I almost feel like it makes life harder in ways once you win it, because now anything less than that, right, just feels like this just immense drop off. And then there's that. Yeah.
Well, but I had to feel it again when I got back to Baltimore. When I got to Baltimore, because they were like competing to try to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were putting together a Super Bowl. We had a team in 2019 or 2020. That team in 2020, I thought we put a team that could win a Super Bowl together. And then COVID happened, and
what a weird year.
It just fucked everything up. And I ended up taking the workload because guys were getting sick and everything. And so I took the workload. It's a 31-year-old player. And then then going into that next season, I was still pretty banged up and just tore both my hip labrums, because I had like such a good system down of like recovery and take care of my body. Because in 2019 season in Denver, I had my best statistical season of my career. And then in the last 2 minutes of week 13 against the Chargers, I'm getting up off the ground on a 4th down play. They got blown dead because half the offensive line jumped off sides, but the rest didn't blow the whistle. So I kept playing and like slipped and fell. And then I'm like trying to get up. Our nose guard runs into me and dislocates my elbow. Like completely dislocates it to the ground. Like, bam! Like,
yeah,
he hit me with a shin here. It felt like a baseball bat hit me. And that fucked me.
Yeah.
And it cost me a lot of money.
I'm sure it did.
Then COVID happened and doctors couldn't see me. And the crazy thing is my wife said, you need to post a video of you working out, because I wasn't getting calls from anybody. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And then I posted a video of me incline pressing 160-pound dumbbells. And the next day, Houston called. And then the day after that, Baltimore.
Yeah. Wisdom from the wife.
Yeah.
When in doubt, throw up a lift and post on Instagram. No, I mean, it's smart. It's smart. I mean, just showing that, hey, your elbow's in a good spot and you're training, you're in good shape. I mean, that's smart.
Yeah. It sucked because they just assumed that, like, since Denver wasn't bringing me back, something was wrong, and it's just, the guys in Denver was like going through like they were trying to sell the team. So they didn't really care about any of us anymore. They were like, they literally everybody from that Super Bowl team was getting traded and sent away. And so like the teams would call and they just like, oh yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to elaborate on it. Why aren't you keeping it?
Right. Well, I got just one more question for you, just still kind of on the training note, and we're coming up on 2 hours here. So I'll let you go after this, but what was your in the NFL, what was your off-season routine like, your off-season training plan? Once the season ended, did you take a few weeks off, go on vacation, travel the world, or were you right back in the lab? What was the off-season like for you?
So the season would end, sometime in January, close to February. And then what I would do is I would do a bunch of like rehab and stuff post-season, like to like kind of get my body feeling better again and feeling like kind of strong again. So I'd work out with Lauren, when he wasn't even when he was a strength coach in Denver, I would just come in there and train with him, and we would just kind of get feeling good again. And then I would take like 2 weeks off at the end of February. And That's my birthday. So I'd just go party for 2 weeks, really. And I'd come back in March. March 1st would be back at it. And we'd start building again, start building all that muscle back and building some power back. And then, I'd go in and we would do like footwork and conditioning and stuff like that. And then I'd lift and then just do that every day. Monday, Tuesday, go pretty hard. And Wednesdays, it'd be like a recovery day. I have a hard time with recovery days. I don't know. I come from a culture of like, you can't overtrain.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no such thing as overtraining is made up by soft, weak pussies. That's
right. There's no overtraining. There's just under eating or under recovering.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't sleep enough and you didn't eat enough. And that's why you're losing muscle instead of gaining muscle, this and that. But Lauren is like, Lauren Landau. So the way he would make it so that I would come in there on a Wednesday. I could still come in. I just had to I couldn't lift heavy. We had to like do other shit. So we would do like core exercises or work on balance. And he would find other ways to hit my nervous system to where I felt like I didn't waste a day, and then boom, get back after it on Thursday and Friday and then take Saturday, Sunday off. And usually I would do like, when I say take it off, I'm doing something. I'd go on like a bike ride or a ruck or do something.
Right.
And or work my craft a little bit, like get some field work in, stuff like that. But then leading into the summer, you start getting ready for training camp, so you're doing more like football specific stuff.
Right.
And then go into training camp and then the season starts.
Yeah. And it's a long season. Yeah. For those in the audience who don't know who Lauren Landau is, he's currently the head strength and conditioning coach for Notre Dame, and he was the longtime strength coach for the Denver Broncos. He's a guy I know personally and have a lot of respect for as a strength coach. So it's awesome that you were able to train with him for a while. In the off season, was it pretty much the whole, I know you said the first few weeks you're kind of recovering, getting your body back, but was the off season all pretty much centered around training and getting better for the next season? Or did you take weeks off where you're, traveling and going and living the NFL off season life?
No, it's funny because that's my wife's love language is travel.
Yeah.
Like going and seeing new places. And so we would like, everywhere we would go, she would have to like get gyms pre-lined up for me to go train at and make sure they were proper gyms. Like I can't go to I'm like, if they don't have 120-pound dumbbells, at least I can't be like, I'm not going to get shit out of it.
Yeah.
So, they got to have real weights and real shit for me to move around in there. And so she would have to, like one time we went to Europe and, we had to take a scooter every day to this gym in Santorini, all the way on the other side of the island. But it was kind of, it was fun, go over there and train. And my wife comes from a fitness background too. She was an IFBB pro and
really,
oh yeah, she was top 10 in the world for a while. She won all kinds of, she was like rookie of the year back in like 2008 or something like that.
Remember what division? Like bikini, physique? Bikini. Okay. That's badass.
Yeah. So she's like very into like staying in shape. She's still in incredible shape. And you're right, man. Once you like get yourself to that kind of leanness, I see it with her and I'm like, oh, you haven't worked out in a month and then you come in here and train for 2 weeks and you're fucking shredded again. Like, what? And she's like, it's just muscle memory. My body remembers that, and
something I think you would enjoy if you did a true bodybuilding style diet. You get into those nitty gritty weeks of the diet where you're just consumed by hunger and you're leaner than you've ever been. You almost enter this like hyper focused kind of like flow state where you're just so fucking locked in and you almost start to like enjoy the hunger, kind of in the same way you might enjoy like the pain of a workout.
Yeah.
You start to associate that with the hunger, and every meal that you hit during the day, it feels like that's a win. That's a win. Even on an off day, like you hit all 6 of your meals, you do your cardio, you push through that hunger, you feel yourself getting leaner. It's just an addictive thing. And I always encourage people like do hard things, do a hard thing in your life. And going through a true bodybuilding cut where you get really, really fucking lean, that is a hard thing. It's because it's 24/7. You got to live your life like that for a few months. And man, I feel like a guy like you would love the feeling of that and that challenge.
Well, let's do it.
Let's fucking do it. Let's fucking do it.
And man,
Well, look, we're coming up on the 2 hour mark here. There's a lot of interesting things about you, especially, in your post football days. You've got your podcast, you were on Rogan, and, your hunting stories and all that. And, I wish we could have covered some of that stuff, but, guys, like, go check out his podcast with Rogan, getting into some of those stories. But in the meantime, Derek, where can people find you right now?
Yeah, right now, I mean, you can find me on YouTube. Just type in Wolfe Untamed. I put all my hunting videos on there, but I also put all my podcasts on there. That's like where I'm trying to like really push my podcast is through YouTube.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting guests. Everyone from, Cash Patel to, teammates, women's teammates that had to be teammates with Will Thomas, stuff, people like that, just all kinds of different subjects. So it's not, that's the hard part about podcasting is if you don't put yourself in a box, then they won't put you in they won't bring your stuff up for people to find. It's like, I won't put myself in a box. Like my podcast is a lifestyle podcast. I'm going to talk to interesting people and bring cool people on, where I'm not a fitness podcast. I'm not a hunting podcast. I'm not a political podcast, but I do talk about all of those things. So,
right.
Yeah, man, just go check it out there. You can find me on Instagram. It's Derek Wolfe _95, or you can follow me on X. It's Derek _Wolfe 95. So.
Yeah, well, guys, go check him out on social media. Give his podcast a listen. Wolfe Untamed, correct? That's a badass podcast name, man.
Thanks.
But anyway, Derek, I appreciate you coming on, man. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, brother.
All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.